Good morning, everyone. This is Sherrie from EJD Mahachik. Today, we're going to talk about the temporary wage subsidy self-identification form from employers, also known as PD27. So just to give you a quick background, on July 27, 2020, the Canada Revenue Agency published the temporary wage subsidy self-identification form for employers, also known as PD27 forms today. The 10% temporary wage subsidy was the 3-month measure that allowed eligible employers to reduce the amount of payroll deductions they needed to remit to Canada Revenue Agency. And this subsidy only applied to federal, provincial, or territorial income tax portion of the remittance. So who needs to submit PD27 form? If you're eligible to take advantage of the temporary wage subsidy and you have already reduced your remittances or intend to reduce your remittances, and or you claim the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, also known as CEWS, and as a result, you will need to complete this form to confirm the amount of temporary wage subsidy you took advantage of. If you meet the above criteria, you must complete and submit the PD27 form to Canada Revenue Agency before your T4 information return for the 2020 tax year is submitted, which is the last day of February. This enables Canada Revenue Agency to properly document the reduction in remittances on your payroll program account, reducing the potential to receive a discrepancy notice at the end of the year. Who doesn't need to submit PD27 form? If you are not eligible, or if you were eligible but did not take advantage of the temporary wage subsidy and don't plan to take advantage of it, then no action is required. The next question is where to submit PD27. So there are 2 ways you can submit this form. The first option is to complete and submit the web form through Canada Revenue Agency My Business account. Or the second option is to complete and submit the PDF or fillable PDF form, which you can find online through My Business account using the Submit Documents feature, or by mail or fax to any national verification and collection center. And these details are provided on the form itself. How to complete PD27 form. So now I'm going to go through the form itself with you. This form is contains 3 pages. So page 1 is contains a lot of information, which most of them we have already covered in our presentation. The one thing you need to be careful of is if you are an eligible employer that has more than 1 payroll program account, you must submit all payroll information on separate self-identification forms. And you must submit all those forms together, making sure that the total is not more than the maximum subsidy per employee and the maximum subsidy per employer. And the maximum subsidy per employee is $1,375, and the maximum per employer is $25,000. So please keep those numbers in mind when you're completing the form. As mentioned in our slides, here are the 4 locations where you can mail or fax your PDF documents to. Moving on to page 2 is where we have to do all the fillings here. Part 1 is very easy, the usual identification portion where you have to write down the employer's legal name, the payroll program account number, and the employer's mailing address. Part 2, you just have to tick the box that indicates which type of eligible employer you are. So you want to pick the one that applies to you the most. And part C, as mentioned above, is where you have to identify if you do have multiple payroll program accounts. So there are 2 questions they're asking you here. First one is, do you have multiple payroll program accounts under this business number? And you're just gonna pick a yes or a no. If you are saying yes, then you move on to the next one. Do you or will you claim temporary wage subsidy under any of your other payroll program accounts? So if your answer is no here, then you don't have to worry about the next one right down here. But if both your answers are yes, then you have to input the total temporary wage subsidy amount claimed or to be claimed on the other accounts. The next part is the most important part of this form, is where we have to report calculated wage subsidy. And I will go through each section with you. So the first part we have to do is to identify the total number of eligible employees employed between March 18th to June 19th of 2020. And you just want to put a total number of the eligible employees right in this box here. Moving down to the form, we have to identify and enter each eligible pay period. So whether you're weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, this is the pay period section that you want to put in right here, from and to, and it has to fall between March 18th to June 19th of 2020. The next column, we want to put in the total gross remuneration pay period, followed by the total income tax that you've deducted off each employee's payroll for this period. And for the CPP and EI contribution portion, you have to be careful because this part, they want to include both the employee and the employer contribution portion of the CPP and EI. So please add those together and then put in the totals in these columns here. The next column, we want to report the actual dollar amount of the wage subsidy that you've claimed for each of these pay periods. And then you would have to do a calculation of the percentage you're claiming for each pay period. So this percentage, how it's calculated, is you want to take this wage subsidy amount that you claimed, divided by the gross remuneration per period, and that should give you a percentage of 10% or less. And I think they gave us 12 rows here, so even if you're on weekly payroll, we should be okay. We should have enough rows to cover the 3 full months. And at the end, you want to total up the total wage subsidy claimed dollar amount right in this box here. Okay. And if you do have any additional comments you want Canada Revenue Agency to know regarding your wage subsidy, please feel free to put your comments and notes for Canada Revenue Agency in this box right here. And then coming to the last portion of this form. So this portion must be completed by the employer or authorized officer of the employer. You have to verify all the information are correct, and you have to attest that you understand all the requirements for the temporary wage subsidy, and you understand there will be penalties and interest if you fail to remit your CPP, EI, and income tax to Canada Revenue Agency. One thing to notice is if this form is not completed by the employer or authorized officer who's signing this portion, you have to provide the contact information of the person who's completing this form. So if Canada Revenue Agency does have any questions or if they need any additional information, they can contact this person who's completing this form instead of the employer or authorized officer itself. Okay, lastly, if the employer or authorized officer has not signed the form, then Canada Revenue Agency will delay or cancel processing this form, and then in the end, we may receive a discrepancy notice from them at the end of the year. So please make sure you date, sign, and then fill in all the appropriate information accordingly. Okay, so that's it for PD27 form. As always, if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to our team at EJD Mahachek. We're here to help you. And I wish everyone have a great rest of your day. Thank you.